So this is kind of something a little bit new. The idea here is I find at the end of our team meetings or whenever we hang out, we always have really interesting discussions that we never actually capture or remember in any interesting way. We never present or really record for social media. So I just kind of wanted to, have a chat, and hopefully it'll be really casual, even though I'm sure we're all much more comfortable behind the camera than in front of it. So to anyone watching, basically this is the video team at Empress Avenue. So we have here, we'll do a little round of introductions, but a range of producers and editors and directors, all people behind the camera. And I just kind of wanted to tackle today the concept of COVID-19 and how it's affected the industry, because it's really had a profound impact on television, on film, and on social media. Of course, it's also had an effect on our own work and our own jobs. So with that out of the way, let's just do a little introduction, and let's start with you, Mila.
I'm Mila, I'm the director.
No, that's great. Mila, video editor. Awesome, thanks, Peter.
I'm Peter, I'm a videographer.
Cinematographer.
Cinematographer.
I would argue, but
Absolutely,
this is the humble version.
I'm a producer, writer, director.
Yeah. My name's Joseph. I'm a producer, director, wannabe writer.
You're a writer.
I'm Josh, I'm an editor.
I'm Gavin, I'm a documentary filmmaker, video editor, and dabbling in writing now.
Awesome. So you all heard kind of the topic. Maybe for some context, we're based on Vancouver Island, which is close to Vancouver. So in some ways, arguably more sheltered than some other filming kind of hubs. BC's weathered the COVID storm pretty well. But obviously there's still been a complete lockdown of the industry. What is kind of some of the things that you guys have noticed in the last few months that's sort of different with the film industry, or even just entertainment that you have access to, basically?
Well, I think like in terms of writing, again, right now things have been able to open up, but my mind in terms of writing has shifted a bit in terms of how we write certain scenes and then how are we gonna navigate some of the scenes where they are more intimate or they are more. So like do we self-isolate together? There's things that I think are gonna have to be figured out.
Yeah.
I think with the way everyone's been moving to, shooting from home on their cameras, on their phones, it's shaken up, and it's going to continue to shake up what is considered broadcast quality material going forward, and what is acceptable now for as far as what broadcasters or distributors are going to be accepting as principally for news and reality and documentary, what is considered acceptable quality now. I think that's going to change moving forward for sure.
So like news anchors not wearing their pants reporting from home, sustain beyond COVID.
Yeah, but also doing interviews by Zoom. I think it's going to be a lot more kind of normal now to not have to necessarily travel halfway across the world to do an interview with someone. That I think will open a lot of possibilities for independent filmmakers, but also for pretty much everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely true. I've definitely noticed, obviously I'm sure everybody has, just super high quality productions are actually willing to just get onto Zoom and do a Zoom call with people, which is interesting. I honestly don't really want that to become too much of a staple. Aesthetically it isn't that pleasing, and there's all these technical issues that come with that. Sometimes it works in documentaries. I don't know if you guys have seen Icarus, but that's a really good example of a relationship over Skype that really was effective and cool, but I feel for the most part, interview wise, it's a little iffy for me.
And one of the things that I think is a shift that might be kind of helpful is how we cast people. We don't have to have them in the room. We can now do casting over Zoom when need be. Obviously it's always preferable to have somebody in front of you because you can see some of the subtle things like eye contact and chemistry, but at least in the initial stages of casting, we can hold auditions over Zoom or whatever platform we use.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that like everyone, whether or not they're technically inclined, is sort of like not only used to consuming that type of material and kind of understands the concept of how video conferencing and calling works, but also they're basically forced to learn how to use it for their own work and communication. So there's sort of not that question anymore of like, is it even going to be tangible to like set this person up on a Zoom call? It's like, no, they're already using the technology.
Yeah, even my parents. It's definitely been like a forced pilot project for all of us. Like we just have to adapt.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at
I
it.
do like wearing my pajamas during our meetings.
And also changed the way the products are received. Like the film industry had a lot of prejudice with streaming the material, especially before going to the theaters. And now with COVID, theaters are not doable. So streaming became something that people that had prejudice before now started to think, oh, that's cinema too. It's just at home. But you don't have the control of the room. You don't have the control of the exhibition equipment, so it's a lot more trickier. You have to think about it before you start doing the film. It's not just changing.
Not just how the distribution. You actually have to think of how the audience is going to be consuming it.
Yeah, changing from the focus on theater to streaming changes all of things.
Yeah, but you feel like it's leveled the playing field. Like people sort of accept streaming content at a higher standard now.
Yeah, I think so. But I remember when the first Netflix movie, I think, ran in the Cannes Festival, and there was a lot of talk about that because they said that streaming was not
real
movie, it was not movie making, and it shouldn't be big festivals. And now I don't think that will make sense anymore because you just have
question.
Yeah.
And that wasn't too long ago. When Roma came out, I was running for the Oscars, and that was a big debate whether just because it had a limited release and everything. But I don't think it's going to be an issue for the next time around.
Yeah, obviously Oscars 2021 is they won't really have any choice.
Yeah.
I don't know, Peter, any thoughts or observations? Has it affected your own work at all in film video?
Well, me being mostly a shooter definitely affected my work. I had to pick up a lot more editing.
I think even as a company, it's like we've had shoots canceled and we've kind of been able to pick up the slack in editing because I think largely because everyone's sort of hungrier for content. So whether they're creating educational content, like whether it's we had if it's an educational institution that's like trying to rapidly onboard all their students onto their online platforms, they need video content for that. If it's a broadcaster or distributor that had, X number of episodes of the series scheduled to film and they can't film it anymore, they need content for that. So we have kind of picked up more post-production work. It's going to be interesting to see how long that sustains, basically, and whether or not everyone's kind of digging through their archives for old material at a certain point, or whether by, as you say, like adapting to new technology or sort of embracing different ways of filming content, if that's going to quickly take over. And also like what the cost of that's going to be. Like it is basically, viewership presumably is stayed at least as high, if not higher, on most platforms because people are home more. But if the cost of producing content goes down rapidly because of the way that people are shooting and producing shows, and that's accepted sort of by audiences, is that going to basically decrease the overall like average funding for a TV series or something, especially with less advertisers and with the economy kind of hurting, frankly. So that's something that I'm curious to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, it's also going to be interesting to see how, with BC's opening up, the film industry is ramping up again, but I think in California they're going to start shutting down, right? So how that, is it going to be a boom for us in this immediate 2 or 3 months where it seems like we're okay compared to the rest of the filming world, or whether it's gonna throw cold water on the whole industry, and whether that's gonna reflect here as well. You know, like whether are the Americans gonna come here to film because they can, or are they just gonna stay at home and wait for things to blow over and
Right.
Well, part of it too is right now the borders are closed, so
They can't come
they
here.
can't come here technically.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They'd have to recast and everything.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
they might do.
Yeah.
And that's another good point though, is like, because it's not just Hollywood versus Hollywood North, of course, it's like, can you film in China right now or India? Or like, I kind of feel like there's going to be some productions that are probably going to completely change not only the filming location, but you know, the casting and even the audience, but like the really enterprising entrepreneurial filmmakers will still find a way to make content wherever is open and reach markets one way or another. But yeah, definitely that agility kind of is like paramount right now, and anyone who can figure that out, I think, will thrive.
And it'll be interesting to see what the content is over the next couple of years, probably, because things that are being produced right now will maybe start to trickle out within the year, but also over the next couple of years. So it'll be interesting to be able to watch something and go, oh, COVID.
That was the year. For sure.
And what do you guys think? Like, again, right now we've just opened up and we're good, but we were talking about all the projects that we need to be working on over the next little while, and I just keep thinking, like, please let us be okay for, you know, yeah, exactly. Like that's my
film the next interview.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you were just getting started in the industry right now, or even if you know COVID hadn't hit yet, but you were able to predict that it was going to hit in the next year, what would you be focusing on right now for your own projects, for your own education, your own work?
Getting projects ready to do post on, I guess, or anything you can do on a computer from home, and just that side of things. Like getting content ready, I guess.
Batch recording as much as possible.
Yeah, basically.
I'd be shooting my
Your feature.
my feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would learn animation. Like,
Oh.
That's a good one.
Because all I'm thinking is like, yeah, I mean, obviously there's hurdles as well in terms of like bringing animated teams together, but it's something that you can do remotely.
Yes.
And I think over the next 6 months, we're probably going to see a massive spike in animated content for older audiences and for adults, and also like animated content that is, how do we say, like maybe of a more entry level grade material, right? Using tools like Adobe Character Animator that automates a lot of that process to do animated talk shows or animated, opinion pieces, basically current affairs shows, things that we haven't really seen in the animated format before.
It's not quite to that degree, but Netflix is basically churning out shows, I feel like, with that level of effort, like their animated shows are literally like all the same art style, and like a ton of them, and they're just kind of like really pushed out. So I feel like animation is really getting closer to the kind of like as automated as possible kind of thing, which is a good and bad thing.
I've seen more of that on YouTube already, like people
definitely.
doing review shows and stuff using animation, or animation channels that have struggled because all their videos are 1 minute, and they're now able to create 8 or 9 minute videos, but at a cost, right? That's not quite the same. But people still, I think in a way, it's a breath of fresh air after like looking at somebody recorded over a Skype camera or something to see something that's crisp and colorful and has decent audio quality.
Yeah, the voiceover work can be done from every actor's home.
Yeah.
If I knew COVID was coming, I think I'd set up a business where I'd go and set up sets in people's houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like
Big time.
get them a couple lights and a good camera.
Yeah.
So when they're doing their whatever call-in platform they choose, it looks better than their backlit webcam.
And that's a really good point. Like, I'm sure a lot of employers have already made that investment, but I think anyone that has personalities that need to appear on camera is thinking about that right now. Like, not just entertainment companies, but if you have a if you're a corporate brand or something and you have a spokesperson, you want to make sure that that spokesperson has the tools at their disposal to appear as best as possible on camera. Which kind of puts it back on like taking some of the control away from the content creators and more on the subjects. Because if you think about that, they can suddenly, if they have a branded backdrop, if they, you know, they choose what they wear and what the makeup looks like and everything else, it kind of like, it's maybe less subjective in some way. I found it really fascinating, like when Canada had our first parliamentary session that was all recorded through Zoom, I think it was, and just like the different backdrops that our MPs chose. You know, like some wanted the flags and the bookcase and the whole grandeur, and others it was like a white sheet or you know, kids in the background and stuff. So I think that's really interesting to see how people present themselves on camera when it's not under someone else's control, and how much some people care about that kind of degree of self-image, I guess, and then how some people really just don't
care.
Just
Yeah, you can see little bits of their personality through there.
The goofy images.
So we talked a little bit about like things that we anticipate will do well or are already doing well, but let's talk more like on the content level. So in terms of the personalities, in terms of the type of content that they're talking about, the genres of content, what do you think is resonating well with people right now, either because what's available has changed with COVID or because people's minds are in a different place?
Well, I have to say personally that when things are, when things feel stressful, like first of all, I love to write dark and gritty, as you know, but to consume, I want a romantic comedy. And what I've realized, because I've consumed them all, there's not a lot. Not the kind that we used to see like in the 90s and early 2000s where there was tons of rom-coms. There just doesn't seem to be a whole lot nowadays, and so I was thinking, okay, maybe I need to write a rom-com because,
it's weird.
Yeah, although COVID-wise that would be as a challenge to film because like. The kissing scenes.
It's a good setup for a rom-com, but not so much a good filming environment for one necessarily.
Yeah. So.
Because like there's a lot of romance movies on the TV side, like the Hallmark Channel is whatever 100 every Christmas.
Right.
But yeah, it's true. There's sort of a gap. It's like that, and then you got like the really big budget stuff. But even then, there's not a lot, and I wonder if that's partially just because of kind of the fall in like the theater experience and how that's maybe a couple's activity more so than
maybe.
I wonder. Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Because I think like Bridesmaids and How to Be Single. I think we're kind of like there used to be lots. Now there's maybe one every 2 to 3 years, or that I've been able to find.
Yeah, no, I haven't thought about that. This definitely seems like a dying genre.
Speaking of theaters, I definitely really miss like going to the movies, seeing a good film. Honestly, I don't know if that resonates with everybody. People are pretty comfortable in their houses, but that's like an experience you can't replicate.
Yeah, no, totally. The little theater here in Duncan, I think, was one of the first in Canada actually to reopen, and I went when they opened, but there's nothing to show, so they're showing E.T. and Jurassic Park and stuff in the 70s because there's no new movies. And there was maybe 2 or 3 other people in the theater. It was very quiet, kind of sad.
On their opening?
Well, this was maybe a few days after, but still, like, opening week. It's interesting. People, I mean, I guess it's still kind of considered a risk to go to public, and maybe you're not going to do it for a 30-year-old movie, but it was sort of interesting. It's not quite the energy that I was expecting or hoping.
Has anyone gone to a drive-in?
I did too,
Yeah,
also an old movie, but that was very popular.
Yeah.
A lot of people at the drive-in.
Drive-ins, I love drive-ins.
It's not that accessible because you need to have a car right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you need to have a vehicle.
It kind of like...
Or a friend with a vehicle that's willing to bring in.
It brings back car culture, I think, in a way that maybe, like, there's kind of a duality there where it's, it's problematic, I guess, in some ways, but, it's going to be interesting to see if, like, drive-ins that are reopening now still exist in 6 months or a year, if they continue to be popular.
Well, it's kind of on the same point, do you think that we should be, at this point, we shouldn't even be thinking about projects that are require a normal film industry, or should we just be focusing on projects that are going to be doable within COVID, atmosphere? Because do you think that if we writing scripts now, a year from now or a year and a half, we can expect to be filming a normal movie? Or
That's
should we be
64,000.
$64 million.
$64 million. I always get them wrong.
I do feel like Canada's handling it well enough that hopefully we should be able to, honestly, and at least from my perspective, which is extremely limited. Obviously, I didn't even hear about the second wave, but it seems like we're on the right path for it to clear up within probably long before
like
that.
to think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess from my perspective, it's like if you have that really, if you're smart enough to workshop a script so that it's just as compelling and just as good, and you can shoot it with 4 people in 2 locations instead of 20 people in 50 locations, like there's always going to be a broader potential sales base for that, a bigger potential getting it sold and made, and that never hurts. But yeah, it's a good point. It's like, are we going to have a lot of those very kind of small intimate stories kind of over the next 2 years, because that's what everyone's been working on and writing, even though COVID might not be a thing. Is there going to be kind of a ripple effect there? Or it could go the other way, but because everyone's using green screens and stuff, it's like everything's kind of on a grander scale, but like less intimate. There's less actual interaction.
In like 20 years, maybe 30 or 40, I'd really like to see like a zombie thriller about COVID where it's just like blown way out of proportion. I think that'd be cool. All these kids would be like, oh, look how bad COVID was.
Can you imagine like 200 years they look back on it and it's all like warped and thrown
It became a telephone.
The second Black Plague.
It's maybe a little sensitive now. Although actually, I saw, I think it was Full Moon or like one of those little kind of cult genre producers put out in very poor taste a COVID horror film within like the first 2 or 3 weeks. And they literally did it by like just rehashing footage from like old projects, including old zombie films and stuff. Like, yeah, definitely a way to kind of ride a wave, I guess, and catch attention if that's your sole objective, but certainly cause some controversy. In the last couple minutes, I mean, we were talking kind of about genre and creators that are thriving right now. You mentioned you're gravitating more kind of towards rom-coms and stuff. What are you guys watching right now? And what do you kind of find provides the best mental break from the chaos of the world right now?
Same old for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Just movies, stuff I can find on streaming services and their international versions and stuff. And as well as just, other projects creatively, but I guess that doesn't count for consuming. Yeah.
Cool. I feel like I've been watching a lot more like light, happy stuff, especially when I was stuck in like actual quarantine because I flew across the country in the middle of COVID. So like I was watching like outdoor adventures type stuff, and that was kind of bringing my mood down. Like I literally can't leave my house, so I kind of switched and watched some kids shows and Disney stuff.
Yeah.
More escapist content, really.
Yeah.
How about you, Mila?
I like watching series, all kinds of series, as long as it's well done. But my favorites are epic, like things on the old days, and it's usually a huge production. So with COVID, I think I'll have to wait a lot for the next series.
Yeah, lots of reruns.
Yeah.
Gavin?
Mostly going for limited series that you can binge watch and finish in a few days, rather than trying to start on Breaking Bad and get through the whole thing. I like
I've made that mistake.
Mostly British and smaller series.
Cool.
I'm Henry Wright. I co-founded Empress Avenue Media with Joseph, and before we started Empress Avenue Media, him and I shot MOWs out of this very house on Empress Avenue for 3 years-ish.
Yep.
Non-COVID related, what's everyone's favorite Canadian TV show? I'm actually curious.
Ooh, I know it's shot in Toronto, but I don't know if it's completely Canadian. But Transplant. I know the lead actor is Canadian. It was really good.
I haven't seen a Canadian show that's really hooked me in a while, I have to admit. But one of my favorite all-time TV shows is called Slings and Arrows, with Mark McKinney and Paul Gross and a bunch of other. It's a who's who of Canadian, Ontario mostly talent. But it's basically like a kind of comedy drama about, it's like based or inspired by the Stratford Festival, like the Shakespeare kind of theatre festival in Ontario. So it's just a bunch of people putting on Shakespeare plays, but it's very cool how it kind of like the Shakespeare tragedies basically like mirror kind of the sitcom plot of the current day people putting on
that's
shows.
cool.
It's very well done.
Mine is not a Canadian production, but the original It was shot almost entirely in Ontario. So like every single location, I was like, I caught my biggest salmon there. I went swimming there. I took pictures on that covered bridge everywhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So like I don't even remember the plot of the story because I was leaning over talking through the whole movie.
I don't think it was very good.
What about you guys?
Schitt's Creek is amazing, and Twitch City from back in the 90s. Twitch City.
Twitch.
Okay.
Don McKellar.
SCTV.
Oh, I love that show. SCTV. What about you, Josh?
My favorite is Kenny versus Spenny.
Oh my gosh.
I watched the episodes.
Yeah, it's very raunchy late night TV. It does not run anymore, but it's super funny. Yeah, it's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen.
My son introduced me to it.
For an actual Canadian show, I'd say Letterkenny.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye from Empress.
That was